Oh wow, and that is us. I'm Web C, and to the right of me is the
Leprechaun.
Leprechaun.
Hey.
And in the background, you'll hear the Model Rocketeer jabbering away about something or another once in a while. He'll get on screen. He's done doing what he's doing, I think. So the three of us are in tonight. The Wicked Wookie's incognito. He'll probably be in the background on some typing and some chat room stuff. But for right now, he is not going to be here. So yeah, we are just going to move right in. I think we were talking about this morning. We were all chatting about something in the late night chat.
A little bit of that crazy catfish alligator crossing.
Oh yeah. So I can let me get that all worked out and pulled up here. We'll read that article together. Here it goes. I'm just trying to glue these parts together so I can be done with this section. I'm so ready to be done with this build. All right. From OutdoorLife.com, alligator catfish hybrids are being spawned in an Alabama lab. Using gene editing technology and just a pinch of alligator DNA, scientists at Auburn have created a sterile hybrid species of catfish they say is more resistant to infection. All right.
Like what?
Yeah. In an effort to build a better catfish, why do we need a better catfish? You know, these things are already invasive species and stuff.
Right.
I don't see why we're necessarily in the need for a better catfish. But researchers at Auburn University have genetically engineered a hybrid catfish species using alligator DNA. The methodology might sound crazy, but the byproducts are nearly identical to the farm-raised catfish sold in grocery stores throughout the country. Still, regulatory approval isn't a guarantee, and these reptilian mud kitties won't end up on the shelves anytime soon. So no worries, folks. No experiments in your bellies. All right. So they go on to talk about the need to create a more resilient fish because of what?
The disease in the fisheries, like they're not able to produce something maybe. Genetically modified catfish, bro.
Commercially, we produce another 307 million pounds in America of catfish. So that's one reason why that's a lot of commercial fishing.
That is, man. River fishing.
But I mean, I don't see the need in us needing to make them more resilient to fish them. We just need to be able to get them to their breeding rate to beat our farming rate. So I that doesn't serve the purpose of making them more resilient.
Okay, exactly. So the article is saying that the reason why they need to breed a more resilient bodied fish is because breeding more fish, the call for fish to be bred has gone up. And when they breed more fish, having them in a certain water space per capita is creating a infectious disease outbreak. So the fish themselves... Okay. The fish themselves are nasty fuckers.
That makes sense. That kind of answers my curiosity.
Yeah, that answers enough for me.
And then they go on
sick because we're crawling on top of each other like fucking rats.
Yeah. Then they go on to talk about the fish's quality of life, ethical concerns, and it's one of the wildlife people who's involved, his last comment is, I'd eat one just as soon as I get it out of the water right now. Like, so he says his little alligator hybrid fish are edible.
They're titties, huh? Okay.
Yeah. This is what it is. So that's definitely that was an interesting article to definitely read across. Other news, apparently, the balloon we were talking about the other day was shot down. They shot it down today, and just as it passed over the last state going off into the ocean, they shoot it down over the water.
They also did you see Ghost Knight's cover of it, where he had took one of the guys' footages of it being shot down, and there's something weird that like shot through the screen of this person who was recording it while it was being shot down, and he slowed it down to show this image moving crazy fast right by there during the process.
Can you send me that link real quick, and I'll pull it up for everybody to watch?
I mean, it was. I mean, if you go to, you might be able to pull it faster than me. You just go. I'll go. But yeah.
Or pull it up and give me the name so I can search it faster.
Yeah,
that'll work. That'll work really good. And then I get the cloud open on my phone. Oh, I think I shut my Bluetooth off. No, it's on. All right. Open the phone screen.
Oh, come on, where you at now?
All right, here we go. You share the screen. So that would be on what, like YouTube?
I was just scrolling through Facebook and it came up, because I follow Ghost Knight.
Ghost Knight, okay.
Now I'm having trouble finding it. Of course, I wish I would have saved the reel.
Night God.
Was it Night God? Is that who I was thinking of?
Yeah. Night God 333.
It was Night God, you're right.
I can do this. Good luck today, Commander.
Today's video is brought to you by Pixel Starships. I'm a huge sci-fi fan, and the space theme in this
Pixel
game is
Starships,
amazing and it's
yeah,
fun
man.
to play. In Pixel Starships, you can build and manage your own starship in an MMO.
I'm sure you all have heard about this by now. The Chinese spy balloon that was spotted over Montana just a few days ago. And of course, you know that yesterday it was shot down. And it took Biden around 7 days.
Is this the right one?
Before he finally ordered it
Okay.
shot down. The reason it took so long is because they wanted to wait till they could safely shoot the balloon down. And also Biden had a request that he wanted to keep it as intact as possible so they could study the intelligence that it had gained up to this point. They even brought in NASA to calculate the trajectory at which they should shoot it down so it doesn't harm any civilians on the ground.
Cool.
So after a few days of deliberating,
Show
they finally
working.
decided it's time to take it out. Now, it just so happens there was a gentleman who was at a buddy's house and he was filming the whole event. And he actually caught the shooting down of the balloon on camera. Okay, so big deal. Why are you covering it, Night God? Well, there's something in the film that is absolutely mind-boggling. Hold on. I'm going to play the entirety of the video first, then I'll come back and analyze it, and we'll talk about what we see. So here's the footage. I took out the sound because of strong language. He kind of misses the initial blow-up, but that's not what we're watching here. You can see that they hit it successfully, and then he pans over to another jet, and you can see clearly that it's flying towards the balloon. Here in a moment. He pans over.
That's moving way too fast.
That's not even it.
Right. I thought I saw something for a second. I was like, wait a minute.
What was that?
Wait, watch.
Here we go.
Did you see it? I slowed it down. It was very fast. Check it out.
Yikes.
Boom. You see that?
Holy fucking
that?
shit.
Yeah.
A UFO flew across the picture.
Whoa.
I'm
That
gonna make
was
sure I slow
fucking
it down again
fast.
for you guys. So you can
So
watch
just
it.
imagine if we're able to track this balloon all of a sudden, don't you think the aliens are tracking those guys too, and then they want to know what that is?
So we can get
Or just
all
what's
this
going on, how this
racial
event's going to play
glory.
out. Who knows?
Shot
They're,
down.
thought process on it.
Watching us watch each other.
Basically,
You know, they're watching us watch each other.
that is that.
Well, what's funny too is what was it just on Thursday night?
Right here.
We were talking about the Simpsons.
Closely.
The
Stuff.
predictions.
Talked about the, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're talking about the Simpsons, 2023, saying that a war between us and China is going to start, and then with the balloon and all this now, it's just kind of like, oh, that's scary.
Well, that's kind of weird because what was the Simpsons prediction? What were they talking about in the Simpsons to cause that? That's what we should go back and look at.
And that when they just said that a war was going to start between us and China, I wanted to say they were supposed to happen in 2024.
Oh, that's crazy. All right. But yeah, there's definitely something that just scoots across the page at like 70 to 120 frames a second. Like,
crazy fast.
Super fast. Like that's almost beyond the human eye fast.
Yeah.
So you get the whole picture.
That's crazy. Like, dude, it just skips.
Yeah, you only can see like 3 blinks of it.
Yeah.
I wonder what he saw before he got it on camera, or do you think he got lucky?
Made a pan over there.
What are the chances of that? Maybe he heard something.
He was panning at the original, the other jet. He was looking at why that other jet was coming in so fast, and then
he caught that randomly, luckily.
Right, that's a good catch.
Probably they're monitoring what we do, our activity in the sky. When we use
missiles, nice. I like it.
Shredder arms.
Oh, I should have sent you something else now that we're on alien stuff, though, about DEWs, directed energy weapons, and what's out available right now. It's amazing. They were going to test it on this balloon.
Mid-flight. So,
but they have already done laser tests to different types of laser configuration.
Sorry, I got those done.
It's actually pretty mind-blowing.
It's crazy. All right, thanks, NetGod33, for showing us that really cool clip. That was awesome of you, dude.
But yeah, and even to jump back into like the hybrid stuff that we're doing. I mean, whenever I think of hybrids, right away I jump back to like Greek mythology and stuff, where a lot of hybrids were just spoken about. Around the same time as the giants and everything. Before the big flood that was meant to wipe them out. And it just makes me think of how easy, for more advanced species to do that on that level of what they described back in those mythologies, because we're just now touching the tip of the pencil to the paper. And look at some of the things that we're capable of doing with that. And so then to just be like, okay, add another 1,000,000 years to our technological advance, and then think of what you could do then. And it just kind of makes you think a little bit more about some of those stories that were just stories.
Well, I was just like your grandpa's conspiracy theories are our real life,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's always the plug-in right there with and that falls just along the lines of the information doesn't get released when it happens. It gets released 10 years down the road, just like the technology. They released the technology 10 years down the road. So
right. Well, they're holding it 80 years advanced, almost 100 years advanced. Like state of the art anti-gravity was created in 1948.
I believe it. There's documents. There's all that stuff. I believe it. They just said it wasn't sustainable with the technology, the level of technology where they had it at the time. So they had to wait for all the stuff they were creating to come out so that they could start making it better. And that's what we do. We take the technology, when they give it to us, the civilians, we make it better because we're the ones interacting on a higher level with it instead of just a few people interacting. Well, no, but once we start getting that, they've been giving that stuff to us since 1999. That's the first time I saw the little toy where you could levitate the ball through the hoops and stuff like that. That's the first type of it or whatever. And they used like hand toggle devices that you'd pinch it or open it or whatever with your hands, and it would make the ball move up and down depending on which hand you were using. It was weird. It was just like a super simple toy, and people just thought it was like the coolest magic ever. Like they didn't know how it really worked. But what it was air and vibration. They were using air and vibration to hold the ball between a suspended area, and it worked out pretty good. So that technology, they were slowly releasing it to us, and now we have these new Meg Trans lifts where we can take like a little Starship Enterprise and float it between these two powered magnets that are humming at just the right frequency to where we can't hear it, but it's holding that little magnetic ship right there in the middle. They're pretty cool stuffs.
I got a desk lamp on the moon. It's a full moon. It's on a platform that levitates. It's really kind of cool.
Yeah, so it's they're simplifying the technology for us so it doesn't freak us out when we see it. It's kind of a big thing of what I think they do is as long as they can release it to us so it doesn't freak us out and it intrigues us, we always have a good reaction to it. But as soon as whenever a technology is released to us or is being shown to humans that we don't have a good reaction to, they instantly cover it up right away. They're like, no, we're not going to do that.
I mean, they do that. They do that through multiple different ways. I mean, they do that through movies and everything else to see how the general public's going to react to specific things. You know what I mean? That may or may not already be possible. It just because I mean, like we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, where people as a mass are idiots, and panic and freak out, where individuals can handle a lot more.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's a way of kind of working it slowly up to the point where they can release it without it being a huge issue. I mean, I think that's a big reason why we don't have more flying cars out right now than we could. I think a lot of it has to do with, not scaring the masses and, creating a controlled process for it to where, it can function in society without being a menace.
Well, right. I think what's been holding us back and it's finally coming out, like the whole autopilot technology, the AI or whatever for autopilot.
It's huge.
It's what's been holding us back for that whole technology, that whole process. And you're right, it is huge. It's super huge. And that's, I think, as it comes out, as it gets better, because it's not great right now. It's definitely needing. It's in its toddler stage right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's advanced enough to where they're able to start marketing it and then working on the bugs from there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's where they're at.
Yep, and the data, all that data.
Yep, that's all they want. That's all they need.
Oh, what else has Night God been talking about here lately?
That was the newest thing I've seen from him.
Yeah. So 12 hours ago, the balloon. 4 days ago, zombie in Mexico. Oh, the zombie insects in Mexico. Russian worker finds petrified flying angel. Nothing from the angel. Nothing new on the angel.
We're not going to. That's the only story we'll ever get from that.
I think so too. I very much so think you are 100% correct on that.
It'll be the enlarged hominids coming back.
Right? Enlarged hominids.
More artifacts and more DNA and more living proof and overwhelming. And there's going to be, I'm telling you, we're going to find some gigantic cave full of information.
This is weird.
Time ago. That's what Neil Armstrong went looking for, or was it Buzz Aldrin? I think it was Neil Armstrong. When he came back from the moon, after they scared him off the moon, he never said shit about nothing, and he sat and wrote books and read things. He didn't do public speaking until he went to the caves of Ecuador. Dude.
Well, and then there was another astronaut. God, I wish I'd have wrote this stuff down. I just stumbled across some random stuff either earlier today or yesterday. And there was another astronaut that then it also went to he went down into Antarctica, and he pretty much came back and he was quoted. He was like they're pure evil, like we're in trouble, like with whatever he saw there.
Right, and then he didn't live long. But if you notice, Buzz Aldrin, he gave one last speech, and it's the most famous speech of his entire career, and it's a wake-up call to humanity, because he died of natural causes pretty shortly after this last speech, but he'd never done any public speaking for like 40 years. And it's crazy what he says about the caves in Ecuador. I'm like, what? I don't got that a bit. So there's supposed to be some kind of like golden cave, a golden book of knowledge, like from millions of years ago, that's like space tech, and it's
All
like
right.
from the enlarged homonids.
Yep.
This is a video coming in last week from my buddy Tyler over at Secure Team 10. Says new UFO footage and initial analysis of the Mosul orb image release. The Mosul. It's over there in the Middle East.
Start today, please remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. If
Yeah, guys, go over there and hit up Tyler at Secure Team 10. Subscribe, like, and share his stuff, dude. He's a great guy.
New videos featuring only the best in anomalous
And he's strictly like anomalous UFO type stuff. He doesn't really venture off into too many other different ventures.
Now, today I've got a number of strange and mysterious new UFO sighting videos for you guys. But to begin with, we have some breaking news that is spreading fast across the UFO research community, as reported by multiple outlets, including his own Twitter account. After going quiet for a while now, Jeremy Corbell, documentary filmmaker and social media personality, has recently released a tweet in the form of a single still image frame of what he claims to be a UFO, or UAP as the government allegedly dubbed them, and the term I refuse to use, but a frame of a UFO said to have been caught on camera over Iraq in 2016 by a coalition military aircraft.
When people come with information, in this case to me an image, I need to make sure if this is a legitimate image and story behind it. It is a military filmed image, an intelligence agency filmed image, and it's called the Mosul orb.
Mosul, Iraq.
Correct. Yeah, this is an image taken over northern Iraq, and this is fine to put out the image itself, and I have some detailed information about it. But here's the very basics.
The image, according to Jeremy, which was first initially released on an episode of his newly created YouTube podcast discussing the phenomenon with his longtime mentor George Knapp, is claimed by the filmmaker to show a UFO caught on camera flying over the Iraqi city of Mosul, and is said to be the first image ever to show a UFO caught on camera flying over a war zone, and that has been, quote, confirmed by the U.S. government as legit, and is reportedly being investigated as a UFO sighting by the U.S. military and intelligence community, although as of yet there has been no confirmation of that. And so the still image frame you're seeing now is said to have been taken from a 4-second video clip captured on April 16th, 2016 by a reconnaissance aircraft in northern Iraq. According to Corbell, quote, it is a military filmed image, and it's called the Mosul orb, noting that the object was named after the Iraqi city where it was spotted. In the video, the metallic-colored sphere seemingly moved alongside the spy plane without dropping in altitude. Jeremy goes on to say, quote, this is in the UFO category within our intelligence community. This is an example of one of the UFOs that our military and intelligence community is looking at, and it's just one of many images. According to one news outlet covering the story, the New York Post, for example, they added, quote, the Department of Defense did not immediately return a request for comment about the authenticity of the image shared by Weaponized, which is apparently the name of Jeremy and Knapp's new podcast, his phrase always being weaponize your curiosity. The Pentagon's newly formed All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, has investigated
our show title's better.
Stated of unidentified flying objects over the span of several months. We talked about this in my recent video in regards to their newest UAP report, which, like every report in the past on the subject, contained nothing new whatsoever, not giving us anything new, type of report that the government always puts out. And so, yeah, we have this image here, which I guess Jeremy released within the first episode of his new YouTube podcast, where he sits down with George Knapp and they talk. And in analyzing this image, we see what appears to be a shot of a metallic orb, or what looks like one, taken by the camera attached to a military recon aircraft, as is stated by Jeremy, which is why I'm a little hesitant to try to analyze this in any sort of in-depth fashion, because it's almost impossible.
So Tyler's just going to repeat himself for the next 30 minutes here. That's what he does for his videos. So usually after the 10 minutes, I don't really go in any further. But that's a pretty interesting, a pretty interesting release of information that's something they were looking into and still are looking into. Now I've seen a few crazy, like, how do you say it? Like you think they're CGI videos, but they're of these metal orbs, like that one, where the orb is like on the ground and it's like spinning and glowing, and then it like speeds up and then like takes off into the sky. Now I've seen two different videos. I've seen one that looks like super fake, and then there's one that's just like you can't make enough out to make it out because the person's like cell phone technology in 2003 was shit, like you didn't get very good pictures back then. Nowadays, I think we are about to see a big rise and change in what we're going to be seeing coming forward, because everybody has moved on to 4G or 5G phones now. Like even other countries and stuff that have stayed behind technologically are now starting to catch back up as well too. So it gives us a whole bunch more. Somebody's text messages. Who gives me the message?
No, that was me sending you a text message to a link of another guy who I like. I like his information very much, and he's actually talking about a special force being attacked by a giant in Iraq, one of the special force teams, and I want to say it was right around the same time that video was, which is what kind of made me think of it.
This is Kandahar, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
That's what this is.
Yep.
Recently set off a 40,000-pound bomb in the Atlantic Ocean, 100 miles from Florida.
This guy?
With this immense explosion came suspicion that it was much more than just another.
Not at all.
You sent it to my regular phone, didn't you?
I did. I sent it to your regular phone.
There
I
you
can
go.
send it.
No, it's good. I got it. Pulls up just as fast.
After 3 years of intense military training,
I like this guy a lot. He does a good job covering stories, much like Nite L.O.A.D.
All right, so let's stop and give him his credits real quick.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely.
The video is titled "Special Forces Attack by Unidentified Creature: The Kandahar Incident." An account retold by YouTube page Mr. Ballin. Now, I've seen a few videos by Mr. Ballin as well. Not this one specifically, but I've seen a couple of his videos. You're all right.
He does a good job. He does a good job storytelling, you know what I mean, and giving you what information he does, much like Nite L.O.A.D, you know what I mean. And he covers a wide variety of things. Like I've caught myself getting lost in a couple of his stories.
Yep. So he's going to talk to us about the Kandahar incident, which is enlarged hominids. Well, that's the new lingo we're going to use to get around the algorithm, so that we don't get the ban hammer. We'll let him use the lingo, but we'll use enlarged hominids, and we'll move from there.
We've gone through all this additional training at the team to prepare for deployment. And here I was, 3 years to the day, almost exactly.
Those shorts are killing it.
Getting ready to deploy as a Navy SEAL.
Looks like he's going fishing.
But none of that training would prepare me for how intense my first couple of weeks in Afghanistan would be. So the flight to Afghanistan is pretty routine until you enter Afghanistan airspace, when your pilots let you know, hey, you've entered Afghanistan airspace. They turn the lights to red in the inside of the plane, and they get ready to descend very rapidly into the base.
Shredder helmet.
We can't afford to be in the air for
Gauntlets are done.
We have to be, because there's a risk of getting
both
shot.
of them.
So there's a super steep descent, and then they tell you to stay away from the windows, right? So you're avoiding the windows in case you get shot at. And I remember thinking, like, wow, like this is really it. We're here. We're in a war zone. Like we're nosediving into bases to avoid getting shot at. Like, it was intense, and I'm in my 20s. Like, it was just kind of cool. Then the ramp opened, the back of the plane opened, and we all got out, and we're inside of this very well fortified base. You know, we're safe in here. And immediately I was struck by the just stunning beauty of the landscape. And I remember looking out at all these snow-covered mountains. And I remember thinking, like, how is this a war zone? This is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. I don't think I really appreciated just how foreign of a place Afghanistan is relative to where I come from. We get out to our site, and that night they wanted to go, they being the team that we were relieving, they wanted us to go on an operation. We were going to be up in the mountains. And I remember distinctly them talking about the cave systems that were in these mountains. And I remember thinking, like, how creepy that was. We would be up on these mountains, walking around. It's so isolated, it's so foreign, and there could be, like, people hiding in caves that we could accidentally fall into one of their caves. Like, it really, really creeped me out. And so I was talking about how creepy these caves were, and the interpreter was like, you know, what's really creepy is back in 2002, there was this fairly well-documented case of another special operations unit, the Army Green Berets, coming in contact with a creature in a cave, and they actually got into a battle with it, and they lost one of their soldiers to this creature, and it was fairly well-documented, but then it was quickly kind of silenced. I mean, certainly the story was interesting, but I didn't really. Maybe it was some animal, maybe it was some person, whatever it was, there was some explanation to it. It wasn't until now that I actually started exploring different strange occurrences and strange events, and I looked and found some testimony from one of the soldiers that came forward anonymously, who was a part of this operation where they came in contact with this creature in Kandahar. And what struck me about his testimony is it sounds authentic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell that soldier's story, and I'm going to tell the other kind of corroborating witness stories as well, to try to give you a picture of what happened in Kandahar in 2002, and you can be the judge if you think this is fact or fiction. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right place, because that's what my channel is all about, and I upload 3 to 4 times a week. So if that interests you, I would encourage you to please gently ravage the like button and then subscribe to my channel and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss any of those 3 to 4 weekly uploads. All right, guys, let's get into the story. In 2002, an Army infantry unit just
so I can see it right here,
just so you know. The Kandahar mountain range in
my cameras are all
and they stopped using the radios. They stopped calling in. No one knew what was going on. They didn't call in a TIC, which stands for Troops in Contact. Basically, any military unit, if you're out on an operation and you start getting shot at, you radio in to your higher command, hey, troops in contact, or TIC, which signals to them you need to get aircraft on standby, you need to get ready to send reinforcements, they need to be ready to support you. But they only do that if you signal that you're in a TIC. And it's a lot of people, if anything, will call it in too early. You know, units are known to call it in almost prematurely sometimes. And so the idea that a unit would vanish without calling in a TIC or any sort of communication about any gunfight or any ambush or anything, it's a little bit strange. And so they disappear.
Hey, it's a commercial.
I've finally been rehabilitated.
It's a little bit strange.
That's a little extra, wasn't it?
The Army decides that in order to find them, because this is obviously a really big deal, they would get their most elite unit, so the Army Green Berets, that's their very elite special forces, they would send them out to find this missing unit. And so one soldier that was a part of that elite special forces detachment, who just goes by Mr. K, he would come forward years later and tell the story of what happened once they were tasked with this mission. So they leave via helicopters and they fly out to the Kandahar mountain range, about 4 clicks, so 4 kilometers about, from where they believe was this infantry unit's last known location. And so they land and they start doing this fairly methodical search through the mountainside. They knew that they were in enemy territory, and at any time they could get into a gunfight, they could be ambushed. There's all these cave systems all over these mountains. And so it's slow moving to begin with. Plus, they're looking for this lost infantry unit. So it's just a very slow movement through the mountains. And so over the first few days, nothing really happened. They didn't come in contact with the enemy. They didn't see any sign of this missing infantry unit. They They just walked along the mountains carrying a bunch of gear, and that was it. At some point, they noticed a little bit farther ahead that there was this distinct pathway leading up the mountain and kind of around the corner. And it looked like a goat trail. There were lots of goats that would run around the mountainside, and it looked like a very well-developed goat trail. And they decided, let's just go up there. Nothing else. We can go up onto wherever this leads us and maybe look down across the other side of the mountain and see if we can see anything. And so the team starts making their way up this goat trail. And as soon as they start making their way up, they start noticing that there are little pieces of American military equipment on the ground. There are pieces of radios, like whip antennas and housing of the actual radio itself. They found military-style backpacks as well, and they started finding pieces of uniforms that belonged to the missing infantry unit. They knew based on the patches that were on these uniforms. So as they're walking up this trail of broken equipment and uniforms, they start seeing some bone on the ground. They didn't know if it was human bone or what. They start seeing broken bones scattered on their way up to this kind of plateau. And so now the Special Forces team, I mean, they're incredibly well-trained. I mean, I'm not just being biased here. I mean, the Army Green Berets, the Army Special Forces, they're very similar to the Navy SEAL teams, which I was a part of. Two different units, no doubt, but very much peers. And the level of training you get in handling situations like this one, now granted this one's pretty unique, you're so well trained that when things start getting dangerous, it's like your training just kicks in, and everybody's does. And so I would imagine that when they saw this, what they were thinking is this was an ambush. This infantry unit was ambushed, and we're probably coming up on the ambush site. And so they're taking defensive positions. They're moving slowly and very tactically up this mountain, and they're keeping their weapons pointed at the leading edge on their way up to the top of this mountain. They get to this plateau. It's a flat section of the mountain, right? It's like a steep mountain, and there's this little like shelf almost. And there's more equipment scattered and more bones scattered across it. And there's all these cave entrances right in front of them. It's as if they were intentionally placed so that they fed out onto this shelf. And so they start moving towards the mouth of the caves, and they realize without even getting very close that even though the mouth of these caves are pretty large and everybody could go into the cave, there is a steep drop-off. Like you'd walk in and then it just goes straight down, and someone kind of peered over the edge and couldn't see how far it went down, and they decided that it was just too dangerous to go in there because clearly something happened here where American lives were lost, based on the tattered uniforms and equipment. And so let's just pull back and take up defensive positions, looking at the entrance to all of these cave entrances. And so as leadership goes down, kind of out of the fatal funnels, if you will, outside of these caves, Mr. K, who's the guy who's told us this whole story, he said he's looking at one of the entrances to the caves and he sees a flash of movement inside of the cave. And he looks over at it. He doesn't have time to react to it or anything. And all of a sudden, a spear comes flying out of the cave. This big, massive lance comes flying out, and it goes right through one of his teammates whose name was Dan. And so Dan's down. And so the whole team saw that. They didn't see who threw it, but they certainly saw the spear hit Dan. And so as they're shocked and just keeping their weapon up, wondering what's going to happen, out runs this, by Mr. K's account, a 12 to 15 foot tall man with a red beard and red hair down past his shoulders, comes charging out, howling like a war cry. He's got animal skins for clothes. He just looks super dirty. And he runs over to Dan to pull the spear out and probably use it again. And the rest of the team at this point is broken out of their shock of what they're seeing, and they start engaging this giant. And the giant didn't really have a chance to fight back, and in 30 seconds, the giant is down too. So Dan's down, and the giant is down. And the whole team is like, what just happened? So after the dust had settled and all the shooting had stopped, they went to check on Dan, and Dan had passed away. And so they called back into higher headquarters, and they're trying to describe what happened. A very large, possibly human creature threw a projectile that hit Dan. And so they sent 2 helicopters out, one to retrieve Dan and the team, the other just to hoist up this very large human-like creature because they wanted to know what it was. And they struggled mightily to get the netting around this big creature. It ended up weighing over 1,100 pounds. It had 6 toes on each foot and it had 6 fingers on each hand. They load it up, they string it onto this helo, and it takes off. and the team gets into
This
the other
motherfucker
helicopter
was almost
and
4 of me.
debriefed as soon as they get back to base. The helicopter with the Giant would fly to an airfield, and they would meet up with a crew of a C-130, which is another big military aircraft. The pilot of that craft would publicly say that he remembers seeing a 12 to 15 foot tall giant person with 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot. And he would say that's what he saw, even though it was later redacted and made top secret. Mr. K and his team, they flew back to the base to be debriefed. And so they had to provide an after-action report. It's something done in the military. You go out, you do any operation, you come back, and you write up what happened. And so Mr. K and his team decided to just be honest about what they saw. And so they described it again in detail. 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot. It came out, it threw the spear, it hit Dan. It was this horrible situation. And once they submitted it, their leadership said, you got to rewrite that. We're not going to accept that. So Mr. K said they ultimately rewrote it, and it just sounded like a typical engagement in the mountains with the enemy. And it was made top secret, and then they never saw it again. And that was it. Mr. K said that he and the rest of his team also had to sign non-disclosure agreements to not ever talk about what they saw. And they never got any word about what actually happened. What did they do with the body of the giant? And they just never got any clarity out of it. It was just basically made top secret, redacted, and they were told don't talk about it. So it would take until 2016 when Mr. K finally just said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go public with what I saw because my friend died and they're acting like, this didn't happen, but it did happen. And so that's why we have this detailed report of this mission where they came in contact with the giant of Kandahar. I don't know how I feel about this story. I do think that if there was a place in the world that had the ability to mask or hide giants from being seen by the prying eyes of the human population, it would be Afghanistan. There were times when I was walking around out there that it felt like I was walking around on another planet. But either way, you do have one soldier who was killed by something out in the mountains of Kandahar, and his own teammates say this is what happened. And you have multiple corroborating witness testimony, but a lot of it's been made top secret and redacted, and so we don't really know what happened, or at least us commoners don't know what really happened. So I'd love to hear what you think happened, whether you think this totally happened and it's true.
Yeah, now it's our time to talk. No. For that, that's a great story, and like I said, this isn't the first iteration I've heard of it. He did a great job talking about it. I feel like he overlaps the details a little bit, like one of the other detailed stories I've heard about the same incident. They go way more into detail about features and stuff about the large hominid and everything like that.
Yep. Yeah, one of the other ones that I've watched, they start referring to a little bit different skin tone color and having 6 toes and 6 fingers, much like the biblical version of enlarged humanoids.
And so that's so I said, so like other things that the hair was dreadlocked. That's something they didn't mention in this one, but they mentioned in another one that the hair of the beast was kept up with dreadlocks and stuff. Just including the beard. Like they said, even the beard was kept up with dreadlocks, and so that was one aspect that I think they kind of just skipped over. Said he had red hair. Okay, well, I don't know. I feel like that's an important thing to talk about.
One of the things that just kind of really gets me with this story that matches up with a lot of other stories when you start talking about these other just variations of humanoids, even like some of the stuff they talked about in Hellfire, is you always have that common aspect, which is the caves, a phenomenal place that we're not messing with. And that one sticks out to me a lot because you go back thousands of years, and there's people back then would live in massive cities underground, the same kind of a way. And it's just, I don't know. Caves to me have always given me an eerie feeling because it is the unknown, and there's so many caves across this land that are unexplored. And go so much further, so much deeper, and connect so much more than I think that we've even gotten close to really realizing, or at least admitting to the open public.
I don't really get a weird feeling when I go near caves and stuff. I get I get the come here feeling. Like something's drawing me, something's telling me I should go in. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
curiosity gets this cat. I got to see it. So powerful. There's something there. Because if it's a hole in the ground and it's pretty natural, just start guessing about how long you think it's been there.
How long? Exactly. Yep.
Whoever's come across it, let alone animals, there's got to be something to be found.
Yeah, because I mean, like up here in Minnesota, if you go along the Mississippi on the Minneapolis and the St. Paul side, there's a lot of caves.
There's a lot of caves.
There's a lot of caves. I mean, obviously, this doesn't really relate to what we're talking about, but I mean, a lot of the caves on the St. Paul side were used by the Irish mafia back in the day to hide the booze and many other things. I mean, they utilized the caves themselves a lot. Years ago, many years ago, and most of them are blocked off. Most of the caves are now sealed off by metal locked doors. You're not even allowed to go into them at all.
Yep. One of my friends, his name is Spencer. He does a lot of spelunking, we'll call it. He goes into a lot of he goes Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin, Ohio, Iowa, and the Dakotas. He goes cave spelunking all throughout those caves. And yeah, he's one of those guys. Like, yeah, he likes to go traveling in them and stuff and checking them out. It's pretty cool. So he posts a lot of videos and pictures of all that type of stuff. So make me think that the cave system that they talk about in Kentucky and Hellier, that cave system connects to the cave system up here somehow. And even in Hellier, they were talking about like Stillwater, Minnesota. Like they brought up Stillwater, Minnesota, and they kept it very brief in that whole aspect of everything. They didn't go very into it. But what they didn't do, nobody told them, was there's a lot of caves along that river for where Stillwater from Hudson all the way down into the cities and through. There's a whole bunch of caves, and I think that was the tie-in that they were missing.
Even like I remember, like my dad, he grew up down by St. Peter and Mankato, and he was like, when we were in college and stuff, or in high school and stuff, there was tons of caves that they'd go down there and party in and stuff. And I mean, there's huge cave. I mean, caves are everywhere. I mean, that's just straight to the point. There's caves everywhere, and they go so much deeper than most of them haven't been mapped at all. Like, I mean, it makes me think, I just sent you another video about some enlarged humanoids, and it's in Solomon, and they talk about in depth about the caves here too.
Let's give it a peek. All right, let's stop. Sling and Stone presents Biblical Giants alive on the Solomon Islands. So this person thinks that there's biblical age style
away from the busy
hominids
cities, there's
living
still a race
on
of
the island.
giants, the offspring of the Nephilim, that still exist to this very day. Kandahar, Afghanistan is one location, and the Solomon Islands is another. Today we'll look at the Solomon Island Giants. The Solomon Islands is a sovereign state located in Oceania to the east of Papua New Guinea. The state includes 6 major islands and over 900 smaller islands. The capital, Honiara, is located on the island of Guadalcanal, which became a famous battleground between U.S. and Japanese soldiers in what is now known as the Solomon Island Campaign of 1942 to 1945. The remote islands were left undiscovered to the rest of the world, inhabited only by an indigenous people who had lived on the islands for thousands of years.
Okay, just to be a quick update. Now, I just watched another documentary about this same island, And now they're saying in that island, what was the documentary we were talking about where they were, I think is you shared it actually, Leprechaun, with us, is they were talking about this lady who had 2 kids, and the kids went off on an adventure because she was like exiled from her tribe, and then her kids went off on an adventure to find the giant that caused her to get exiled or whatever.
I did share this one with you, but this story is intriguing me.
Oh, it is? Okay, so you haven't heard that one? All right.
Nope.
So yeah, anyways, the story from the island, it's all from this island. And the story ends up as the 2 kids end up taking down that specific giant and redeeming his family and everything, and then become rewarded by the tribe instead of ostracized.
In 1568, a Spanish explorer by the name Alvaro de Medina became the first European to discover the islands, navigating the oceans from Peru. After discovering the islands, Alvaro named them the Islands of Solomon, with the belief that he had found gold, and not just any gold, but the place where the biblical King Solomon obtained the gold for his temple in Jerusalem. Rumors of such an important find reached explorers in other lands, and in 1595 and 1606, more Spanish expeditions set out to uncover the truth. The discoveries of gold reported by Medina were never verified back then, but in more recent times, companies have managed to mine a large amount of gold from the islands. There is thought to be a substantial amount of gold still buried throughout the land. The native people who have inhabited the Solomon Islands for thousands of years have passed down traditions and oral stories of giants living in the land, much like many other cultures from around the world. And these people living on the islands still believe that these giants exist today, and that they're living in caverns in the earth, in caverns in the islands that connect to the islands, where the giants don't even have to get out to see the light of day if they don't want to. Here's the testimony of Marius Boreum, a helicopter pilot who lived on the Solomon Islands, heard many stories about the giants, and claimed to have encountered them himself. Marius Boreum lived and worked in the Solomon Islands as a helicopter pilot and engineer before marrying one of the natives. He learned more about the islands and the indigenous people, as well as the folklore surrounding them. He learned about the Solomon Island giants, which supposedly inhabited the caves throughout the islands. The Solomon Island giants were said to be over 10 feet tall, with evidence that suggests the giants can grow much taller. The surprising features of the Solomon Island giants are similar to other creatures around the world, like Bigfoot and the Mongolian Almas. They have very long black, brown, or reddish hair, bulging double eyebrows, red eyes, flat noses, and large mouths. There are thought to be 3 different species of giants, the largest over 10 feet tall, with another being smaller, and the third smaller still, but still bigger than a human. This helicopter pilot, Marius Boreum, wrote a book titled The Solomon Island Mysteries, and here's a quote from that book. It is linguistically ironic that the Solomon Islands peoples name their undiscovered to the modern world race of humanoids the giants, as throughout history, including in the Bible and other prominent books, the same name has been used in other parts of the world to describe these huge, elusive, subterranean humanoids. The Solomon Island giants have become a topic for further research, often led by Marius himself. Marius writes that some of the giants were killing and stealing humans from their villages. He speaks of a huge rogue killer giant attacking the indigenous people. Quote, "This monstrous giant was an elusive and cunning creature that stalked its victims and often crept around the villages at night to seek its meals." He goes on to explain that many warriors had died trying to slay the giant, before villages had to be moved to other parts of the islands in order to protect their people. The Solomon Island giants are said to have social structures, and there are possibly thousands of them which inhabit Guadalcanal to this day. They use complex cave systems to pass from one side of the island to the other without ever having to see daylight. That's the end of Marius' part of the story.
Yeah, right?
There's also claims and reports that Japanese forces encountered
Attack on Titan. It's like Attack on Titan shit. It's all real. We're all descended from some crazy beings, man.
Yep.
Solomon Island giants as well, when they battled the United States on the islands in the 1940s. Between 1942 and 1945, Japanese and U.S. forces engaged in heavy fighting on the islands, which became known as the Solomon Islands Campaign. During this conflict, Japanese forces would experience first-hand encounters with the Solomon Island giants. They reported seeing creatures around 10 to 15 feet tall, which would sometimes come charging at units of soldiers. Their bullets had little effect on them. While suffering from attacks in daylight, soldiers also had a hard time sleeping as they could hear their fellow comrades wailing through the night as the giants launched more attacks. The cannibalistic nature of the giants struck fear in the hearts of the Japanese infantry. The giants of the Solomon Islands are common knowledge to locals, but along with stories of foreign encounters and sightings of footprints, there can be more truth to the stories than we realize. We know that giants
You want to pause
existed
real
before
quick?
the flood and
Oh
after.
yeah. What's up?
So I mean, just some of with like especially like with the Japanese, and I mean them almost like gives me a vibe of them kind of stirring the pot. When we were fighting, a lot of these nations over in that area, they use tunnels and cave systems to their advantage. So it wouldn't blow my mind at all that they went to this kind of foreign land to them where it wasn't their home turf, and they tried to utilize some of those cadences into their own, and then ran into something they weren't expecting, kind of a thing, which could have possibly led up to it being what he's telling.
Yeah, drive okay, so we call it driving, like when you go on a deer drive here, like when we go hunting. Okay, so if we all march through all the caves all at once, everything's gonna push out the other side, whatever the other side is. So that's what you're saying is the same thing. Yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
No.
And yeah, I just the straight carnage that they describe happening is just crazy, because what I want to do is I want to look up more about this on the aspect of maybe from the Japanese side. See what the Japanese tell us about the Solomon Islands, not like
what
what
do
Google
they have
says,
documented that's leaked out?
Right, and that would be a good another good thing to look up for this. I'm gonna get to playing it again.
The flood. The story of David and Goliath, that happened far after the flood of Noah. So somehow the Nephilim and their offspring, the giants, were able to reincarnate or come through some dimensional door or something along these lines. That's a topic for a different video. But they did exist after the flood. And we know this because not only the Bible tells us, but we see in cultures all around the world that had no contact with each other, all have depictions of giants before the flood and after that, in their architecture and in their cave writings and in their teaching.
So that right there goes back to my my learning about this thing that not only does our species have it, but all the ape species across our world have it, where once so many apes learn how to do something a certain way, all across the globe, all of these apes are learning how to do this, like just naturally. They just learn how to do it. Same thing with humans. Humans have done this throughout history, not just with giants, with or enlarged hominids. We've done this also with dragons, large lizards. We've done this with large serpents, water serpents, or whatever we found. If it's something that scares us, we tell that story, right? And after so many iterations of the story, it's like our whole species across the globe learned about it like right away, and we all stopped and drew the image down, and like we all drew those same images. So there's some sort of weird scientists are trying to prove it's real, but it's some sort of weird connection like that, and they're trying to say it's a real thing. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. So
we also can look at these cultures and see not only did they all have stories of giants, but they were all for some reason building pyramids.
These grunts are often called the dogs of the battlefield. Yet there is some truth to the statement.
So the same thing, right? They're all building pyramids, right? So just all these cultures just magically learn how to build pyramids. It's
building pyramids. We can look at the
once it comes into being in one's mind, it's transmitted across the spider web of time space
to 2500 BC. The ziggurat of Ur and the city of Ur in Iraq, 2100 BC. Those areas are all close to each other, so you could make the theory that they somehow saw or had contact with each other and made those. How about the Qinshi Mausoleum in Sihan, China, 210 BC? Or the Pyramid of the Sun in Teotihuacan, Mexico, 100 AD. And lastly, the Praying Temple Kolkir in Cambodia, 940 AD. So not only did all these cultures have stories and depictions of giants, they all, for some reason, were building pyramids, showing that somehow something was going on in the earth in those days where where these things were all connected, but they had no contact with each other. And that's the proof of the fallen angels and their mingling with men that existed in the earth back in those days, as told to us in Genesis 6:4. There's quite a few verses in Bible prophecy that make me wonder, are the Nephilim and their offspring returning again in the last days? And two of those that I'll mention now is in Revelation 9. We're told that there will be an army of 200 million strange things, creatures, horsemen, that will be a plague that will kill 1/3 of man. We don't know what they are. They've got strange attributes to them. They could be some type of Nephilim offspring that is brought back to life for the last days deluge of war that is brought upon the earth. Another verse that would back up that theory would be Luke 21:26, talking about in the last days, men will faint from fear and anxiety over what is coming upon the earth, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. So men will faint and fear from anxiety of looking upon the things that are coming upon the earth, something so frightening. Maybe
that's so weird, because I was just talking about that, how man reacts to those things that come to us. Oh man, that is such a weird, like, coming back full circle type weird thing.
So I found real quick.
Wicked supernatural event.
I found. Go ahead, Rocket.
No, it's a synchronicity.
Yeah, so I found the story that Night God covered about the twins that you were talking when I sent that to you. But then I also found another story. I didn't fully watch it because I wanted to stay in tune in what we were watching right now because I didn't fully finish this video. But I sent you another video that it seems to be what we were talking about, where it was kind of a recap of some of the stuff that was happening from the Japanese points of view with some of these attacks.
All right.
And that's the last one that I sent you, just to give you a heads up.
All right, we'll go into that one. We'll look
Let me know what you think in the comments below about these stories. Did these people encounter giants on the Solomon Islands? Are they still there today? We know giants existed after the flood, so there could be still little pockets of giants living in the earth, probably in the caverns of the earth today. Let me know what you think in the comments below.
Man, we should give those motherfuckers Wi-Fi and cameras and see what the fuck they do. Right?
Oh,
it's just
man,
like
TikTok videos.
They'd be over there making fun of LeBron James. Watch, he's gonna fall down again. No.
Little man.
All right, let's see. Okay, the last one. Right, Giant Solomon Island uncut version. Is this the one you sent me?
Yep.
Okay, so let's see. Lasco Atkins is gonna give us a World War II Giants of Solomon uncut version.
To beat the Japs back from invading Australia, New Zealand. That's how far.
So I guess
our mission was to take control of the Solomon Islands in South Polynesia.
Oh, that's cool.
Say it was a mission like any other, but I'd be lying. In this one battle in particular, we encountered something unheard of before. It was never mentioned in any of the history or science books. We were a small squad of patrol.
Their giant looks a little questionable, but okay. This is great. Oh, he's coming to get you. Coming to get you. Coming to get you.
It don't sound like any kind of footsteps I have heard. I'll get ready to be on alert, boys. And if it is sometime, who knows? They got an ambush down foot. All right.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't fully watch this one. Like I said, we're in the middle of the video, so I wasn't 100% on what I sent you.
This is a weird reenactment. I tell
It
you
is.
what.
It's kind of throwing me off.
Boys, have you seen this? Is this some kind of giant?
Hey, they scaled them up at least. That's good. Die, puny humans! Unalive you! Unalive! Oh, Lord. Save me now. Fuck you!
This video is killing me.
All right. Can't be doing it. I think the whole video is going to be this way, right? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, we're.
Yeah.
My apologies. I watched the very beginning. I thought maybe they'd have some good storytelling.
Oh, no. It's the same thing. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, the stories out of the Solomon Islands are pretty crazy.
There's a lot of them. As I'm scrolling through, looking at some stuff here.
What are you doing? Gonna build a house.
Things to do. Does the race giant still? Kennedy Island. So that's just weird. A whole bunch of stuff like we're not trying to go into it. Oh, but I did see there were these brothers over in Wisconsin back in the 1880s or whatever. And they grew to be 12 feet tall each. They're basically, modern giants. I just can't remember what their last name was, but there was a whole write up on them and stuff. Talked about one of them died young, 27 or something, and then the other one lived to be like 45 or something. Neither one of them lived to be real old, but They lived normal lives. I think one of them took a wife and had kids. All of his kids were extremely tall as well. Not nearly as tall as him, but tall.
And then remember some of those people like Laszlo Wadsworth or whatever that
Turn that
tall
down.
guy,
There you go.
people like that. They would be like in the circuses and stuff. They were like
Yep.
the last of very few, very large people.
All right. So
And then they to was it thyroid, like hyperthyroidism is like, is that really what it is?
So this is a picture taken on the Solomon Islands. So just to go back and like get some pictures of back then and stuff, just to see, what these guys. So these are some Japanese soldiers and stuff. So this is like the Japanese recountings of the Solomon Island creatures, what they found. It's a very short video.
Yeah, 20 seconds.
Yeah. So that's a crazy one. That video was given to us by Mimic Octopus Man. It was a 21 second video, and he posted that 5 years ago.
Oh wow.
Let's see. Still looking. World War II in color, the Island War. Yeah. It's very interesting. Let's keep going. Cold plunging. That sounds like it'd be fun. I haven't done that in a while. Polar plunge.
Oh man. Some Wim Hof. Get your Wim Hof going. I do something similar because there's a place where I can go swimming where the water's freezing cold, and over the course of years, I've cleaned the rocks out of the bottom of this little waterfall pool, and it makes it nice. But man, that shit's cold.
All right, this should be a good one. From
Night
Night God.
His best clothing, loaded him up on the wagon, and they headed to town. Upon arrival, Bundaberg was teeming with activity. People from all over the district had showed up to see the event. The old man parked his cart, tied up his horse, and told Luddy to watch over it as he entered the pub to see what the good word of town was. As he walked in, he saw a couple old friends that he hadn't seen in a long time. Went up to the bar, sat down, and began having conversation with them. They were talking about the boxing event, and one of them jokingly asked the old farmer if he was going to have a go in the ring. He laughed and said, "No, but my Kanaka is," and the entire bar laughed out loud. A Kanaka, they proclaimed. You can't throw him in the ring. He'll get pummeled. The old man slams down one more beer. Well, we'll just have to see, won't we? And he smiles as he walks out of the bar. Shortly after, the pub slowly empties as the men head down to the tent for the boxing match. Luddy and the old farmer make their way down to the tent. Luddy is utterly confused. He has no idea what's going on. This was the first time the old man has ever brought him to town. He tells Luddy to stay put as he heads up to the attendant and begins talking to him, asking if he can have his Kanaka come into the tent. And he says, no way, they're not allowed. But I brought him to fight in the ring, explained the farmer. The door attendant laughs out loud and says, you can't have a Kanaka fight in the ring. He'll be killed. Either way, rules are rules. You'll have to go see the owner. So the old man made his way through the crowd to the owner. He explained the situation, and the owner told him, let me see him. They get to the wagon, and there sits Luddy. The owner looks him up and down and says, well, I've never had a Kanaka in the ring before. Why not? Let me make some dough off this black fella. The owner made his way back to the tent and told the door attendant to let the Kanaka in. Then the old man turned to Luddy and with a tear in his eye explained the situation. He told him that if he wins, he can go back home. But Luddy couldn't understand. Still confused, the old man leads Luddy to the tent, pays for his entrance, and they head up towards the ring. He watches as two men bare-knuckle box, and one of them seems to fall down dead and then gets drug out of the ring. Afterwards, the owner hops in the ring, grabs the microphone, and yells, gentlemen, We have a special treat for you tonight. I have been asked for the first time in Queensland history if a Kanaka can hop in the ring for a round or two. The crowd burst out laughing. He quiets the crowd and announces his best fighter, a tall German boxer. Then he announces Luddy, and as he enters the ring, people are laughing and jeering, teasing him and taunting him. The old man quickly makes his way to the bookie to make the bet. They ring the bell and the fight is underway. But Luddy is still staring at his owner, the old man. He has no idea what's going on. As a giant, he's never even seen any combat like this. He doesn't understand what kind of stuff mankind is into. So as he's facing away from his opponent, the big German bare-knuckle boxer punches Luddy right in the back. He doesn't even flinch. The massive giant barely felt the punch from the German professional boxer. Then his old friend the farmer busts it out. He pulls out a tobacco pipe, and Luddy's eyes light up. He yells, "If you win, you can have a box." So Luddy turns around and looks at the fighter.
Pause real
Takes
quick.
another punch to the face. Wow. Then
Okay.
Oh,
Pause.
so I would love to find. I've been trying to actually this specific giant that they're talking about. I was trying to find his story to send to you because he was I'm gonna do the best I can with this. On an island, I wish I could remember the name. This giant, his mother or whatever had a tobacco pipe that got broken, and this giant went into town to try and get one, and while doing that, got caught and then put into pretty much a slave trade, and got purchased and got sent off to a farm. And as the story goes on, really he was just trying to get some a new tobacco pipe for his mother or grandmother. And he in the end of it, he doesn't even know how to get back to his island, but he's, that was like his whole goal. So that's what that reference of the tobacco pipe was. It was to that story. If I can find it, I will send it to you.
Okay.
But yeah, no, that it goes in. There's another story of this same giant that goes in much further depth of that.
All right. Cool. Yeah, this is a part 2, so that might be part 1 that you're talking about. So this says it's a part 2. So we just kind of came in the middle part of this story, but he's just talking about a giant's experience fighting a German.
Yep.
The German boxer steps back, kind of dumbfounded. It doesn't seem he's even phased Luddy. He can't understand why his punches don't seem to be hurting this 7.5-foot tall man. Luddy just smiles at him. He winds up his right hand and he punches the German as hard as he can right in the chest. The whole crowd gasps in awe and somewhat fear as his hand sinks through the chest of the German boxer. The people standing behind the German for a brief second could see the giant's knuckles imprint protruding from his back. With his fist virtually stuck inside the German's chest, he picks him up with one hand, looks at the farmer, and yells, "I win!" The once laughing crowd fell to pure silence. You could hear a pin drop in that arena.
Yeah.
Luddy, not realizing what he had done, was acting almost comical about the situation. The owner hopped on the mic and said, "All right, everybody, fight's over. Head home." The crowd slowly pours out of the arena. 2 officers come to the ring and check the fighter's pulse. He is dead. Shortly after, a medical examiner would also check out the German fighter and pronounce him dead as well. Then the officer, owner, and the medical examiner convened, and it didn't take them long to decide it was an absolutely fair fight. Sometimes this happened in bare-knuckle boxing. And even though the giant killed the German fighter, the owner paid up the old man.
Nice.
And he won a sweet purse because he was the only one that bet on Luddy. So in high spirits, he and Luddy went back to the farm. He explained to his wife why he lied and that he was going to send Luddy home. Showed her the winnings and said that they'll buy 12 indentured servants to replace him. That night, he ate dinner inside with the farmer and his wife. The next day, they went to his neighbors and they bought his best friend to help him in the journey back to the Solomon Islands. The following morning, they were on their way back home. So Luddy arrived back home with boxes of tobacco pipes for his grandma and told his family of his great adventure. he would also end up telling them what he learned about the coastal people and their population, how they weren't just mere animals, that they had feelings and thoughts like the giants themselves. He began spreading this word among the entire giant clan of the Solomon Islands, and many of them immediately hopped on board. But there were a large number of giants who were set in their tradition, and they didn't like the idea that they had to stop using coastal people. They had been using them for food for centuries, and there wasn't anybody that was going to stop them now. Eventually, Luddy would grow into one of the greatest and biggest giants in the Solomon Islands. He would become chief of the good half of the giants. As chief, he would wage war on the evil giants that continued consuming people. This war between the giants would go on for years, and it was called the Giants' War of the Solomon Islands. He would come out on top in the war among the giants, and he would become chief of the entire clan, immediately instilling a law that the giants were no longer to attack the coastal people at all whatsoever. This changed the indigenous natives' entire way of life. They no longer had to live in fear. And in order to prove this to the coastal people, Luddy went around the island handing out his tobacco pipes to the islanders as a sign of peace. If you go to the islands to this day, you can talk to the elders, and they'll claim that the tobacco pipe that they're smoking on at that moment came from the chief of the giants. It's said he's still the chief of the giants at present day, and he will continue to rule for many more years, as giants live much longer than humans. And if these stories are true and the giants do truly exist, this is a milestone for the relationship between giants and mankind. If for some reason they emerge, we need to live in the model of the people of the Solomon Islands. They've been able to coexist with these giants for over the last 100 years. According to the book, it's not uncommon for them to see groups of giants wandering through the jungle. And this is just one of the strange mysteries of the Solomon Islands. There are many more stories like this one in this book. Check it out. Hope you all enjoyed. I am out.
And I sent you already part one of that, which is what I had previously watched. I hadn't gotten the second part before.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hit up the second part. I kind of just fell right into it. But yeah,
no, it fit everything perfect with what we were already talking about. So I mean,
yeah, that's why I was just like, it just like, I don't know. That one didn't really. We don't need to really watch the whole introductory side of that. That was a good, the good synopsis.
Yep.
So yeah, my take on it is okay. So I don't get why there's been so much recent suppression about enlarged hominids or enlarged humanoids of any kind.
I mean, I think. Go ahead.
But I want to say that whatever the suppression reason is, I mean, we should be paying attention. We should be looking. There should be something to look for.
So I think really, if you want to get real with it, giants come from the offsprings of men with fallen angels. So I mean, that's giving attention to the fact that extraterrestrials were here and did play a part in our past, and that goes against the basic control of the majority religion. And I think that's the biggest problem with giants is saying that they were a thing digs back deeper into what's already written and everybody is reading.
And you're saying that the powers that be right now don't want people reading back that far.
They don't want them taking it that serious, because then it's taking the word God into being just a different being instead of being a higher power to pray to.
Okay. That's interesting. That's a very interesting take on that. I don't hate that idea, but I'm not 100% on board with that. I think it's similar. I like my thought line is similar. Is that the powers that be just don't want us digging, because the more we dig, the more we're going to find out that we weren't meant to be in the dichotomy that we are in. system.
Yep.
You know.
Yep, I think
You
that's
know.
a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like it lies heavily on that factor. That's where my thoughts of it go. Other than that, I really don't know, or have like a perfect answer or solution to that quandary. I do want to like get together the resources for a freedom of information request and go ahead and come up with every different name we can for giants. You know, Bigfoot, Yeti, Sasquatch, giants, enlarged hominids, anything, and submit that as a Freedom of Information Act. And I bet we'd get some crazy shit back.
I absolutely agree, and I mean, for me, you know, enlarged humanoids is a huge hobby of like digging into and researching. When I was trying to find some of the videos that I was sending you, I was just kind of trying to hold in my laughs because I'm sitting there scrolling through YouTube, and half of them are the videos that are showing up my list are completely watched by me because I went through a binge of just wanting to know more and more and more and more. You know, what can you give me? You know, I don't care how bizarre the story is. There's so many of them that there's got to be some truth somewhere in each one.
Yeah, I've been just so fascinated and interested in the story of the enlarged versions of our species ever since like when I was about 7 or 8, maybe a little older. My dad told me that we had cousins, like we have actual relatives that are like 9 feet tall people and stuff like that. Like a whole section of my Native American family, they're all just big, huge 7 to 9 foot tall people. The whole family on that side, and I was just like, wow. And my dad was like, yeah, I don't remember him, being specific, but he was just like, there's a place. It's called Turtle Mountain. And it's like it's up in Canada, and we have relatives there, but. Apparently, the genetics from the people that lived up in Turtle Mountain, the natives up there, they're larger, almost as if it fits in with the whole story of the fallen angels breeding with the humans that were here prior and creating the new species of giants and Nephilim, whatever you want to call them. So it's just kind of weird. And then what they did is,
I mean, with Canada, though, I mean, just to like kind of touch on that, just off of a hypothesis and just kind of making assumptions, there is so much of that land completely untouched, like just completely uninhabited, that it wouldn't blow my mind at all if there was a tribe or a cave somewhere holding something much similar to the Solomon Islands.
right. Exactly.
I mean, seriously, I mean, if you look at Canada as a whole, and then how much of it they actually have populated or used as a resource, it's the percentage that's not touched is very
it's
surprising.
insane.
It's a huge
it's
number.
insane. Basically, when I look at Canada, all of their cities float right at the border of America. Because
and
it's so
most
cold
on the
up
East
there.
Coast, and most of them on the East Coast,
and most of them on the East Coast, and so that's a large amount. That's a large swath of land that's not being used for anything else. And then there's the sections of land that are used for mining and stuff. Now, the thing that always gets me with mining is we never see any. That's something we should look into and do it like a whole episode on. Is Canadian miners?
A week on mining.
Canadian miners. We'll do like through the whole week's worth of episodes on mining. That'd be good. Just finding retellings of stories from Canadian miners about any kind of spooky thing or a supernatural type of thing, or
because there's one. Oh gosh, I'm gonna have to do some research and I'll get you the information before we decide to do this. But there was I wish I could remember what state it was, but they literally, like, there was documentation and almost like laws built around like what they called almost like gnomes or dwarfs in these caves, in these mines, that were forcing collapses and causing huge problems within these mining facilities. I will re-find this information and I will send you the video link so we can go over it. But it was a trip to listen to at the time, and I would love to go over it again with you guys.
That sounds good. I like that. And yeah, I'm totally down for dedicating some time to doing the whole finding what the miners say and stuff like that. And then yeah, like my whole thing is I've just been keeping my nose to the grindstone and listening to what all these other people have been saying and talking about, and just where all this data comes from, and then trying to go and seek out more data related to the data is where I'm coming from, because well, the mainstream has got a bunch of data out. Like right now, a big section of social media isn't even talking about paranormal anymore. They're completely on with like a whole bunch of other crap right now.
I mean, a lot of the, I mean, you got to think of how much of the mass population are just consumed with what's going on with, celebrities and just the mainstream TikTok videos where it's it's junk. It's just garbage.
Yep.
A lot of this
Definitely.
younger generation, they're not seeking knowledge or information. They're seeking short-term entertainment, and that's what a lot of TikTok videos and stuff are for the most part. It's just junk that people can scroll down and be like, oh, I'll watch this one for 5 seconds. Oh, I like this one. It's just crap. It's just all crap.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's really hard to find some real genuine information in it nowadays, and I hope that we can find a way to provide more of that.
Yep. I took our show opener and turned it into a little TikTok video and threw it up there.
Good.
So our show's out there is like a little TikTok opening thing.
When as we get going, I think that we should be touching, more platforms in that sense where we can break down some of our small conversations and send them off. But that'll be in due time, and that'll be a conversation off live. But
yeah, I was getting ready to actually mention that and bring that up with you guys. Is I was gonna say we can talk about that offline, but just a quick note in that details, let's discuss within that realm of us each going off and watching a video off of the YouTube that we have set up and finding the time frames, like 19 minutes and 20 seconds, 1 hour and 15 minutes, where we can find that conversation real quick and I can go to it. I can do a whole capture on it, and then I can put it together as exactly what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's
absolutely. We'll put that on. We'll put a pin in it, and we'll come back to that.
So
absolutely.
Then yeah, I mean we're an hour and a half into the show tonight, so I'm pretty good with tonight's show. I'm happy with everybody's. I'm happy with everything we talked about tonight. It was a good conversation, great show. I am super tired though.
No man, get your rest, man. Get your rest. Yeah, these were some fun topics to come up on, and I would also love to, I got some stuff we'll talk about off air.
Definitely. All right. So thank you everybody for coming out tonight and hanging out with us.